Liam O'Connell's office on Harmony Hub was a monument to organized chaos. Stacks of data chips threatened to topple over, ancient lexicons lay open on his cluttered desk, and empty nutrient paste pouches formed a colorful, if somewhat disturbing, landscape around his monitor. Liam, a man whose 34 years had etched a few fine lines around his perpetually amused eyes, was hunched over his desk, muttering to himself in a long-dead Xylos dialect. He ran a hand through his perpetually messy brown hair, pushing his glasses further up his nose. The screen in front of him displayed an intricate glyph, which seemed to be mocking his efforts at decipherment. "Seriously, you glorified space starfish, what are you trying to say here?" Liam mumbled, tapping the screen with a frustrated sigh. His current project, translating a particularly dense Xylos treatise on pre-spaceflight social structures, was turning out to be more of a headache than a historical revelation. He was about to reach for another cup of synth coffee when the room seemed to vibrate. It wasn't a physical tremor. It was more like a shift in the very air itself. A strange, almost floral scent, heavily laced with something musky and unsettling, flooded the small office. Liam's eyes widened as his nostrils flared, trying to understand the unexpected sensation. He stood up, pushing away from the desk as his heart rate began to accelerate. "What in the name of?" he muttered, glancing around wildly. It felt as though his brain was trying to process too much information. The usual clarity he was used to had suddenly vanished. The door to his office hissed open, and a figure stumbled in, practically radiating the source of the strange scent. It was a Xylos, easily a head taller than Liam, with opalescent skin that seemed to ripple with an internal light. For long, tentacled arms writhed slightly, and large, luminous eyes, usually so calm and intelligent, were wide with a mixture of panic and confusion. The Xylos, whom Liam recognized from the hub's personnel list as HFY, the celebrated mathematician, was clearly in distress. My systems are fluctuating," she stated. Her voice, usually crisp and clear, was now a warbled and uneven monotone. She reached out with one tentacled hand, almost knocking over a precariously balanced stack of translation journals. Liam's eyes widened as he watched her struggle, noticing the usually elegant control she displayed had completely vanished. "HFY? Are you all right?" Liam asked, his voice tinged with concern. He took a step towards her, only to recoil as the strange scent intensified, and his own head started to spin. A sudden wave of something that felt like heat washed over him. He blinked rapidly, trying to clear his mind. HFY swayed, and then slumped towards Liam. He instinctively reached out to catch her, her opalescent skin surprisingly warm to the touch. He carefully supported her, placing a hand around her waist, trying to keep her upright. Her tentacles brushed against his arm, and Liam's breath hitched. The scent was overpowering now, making his senses go into overdrive. I appear to be experiencing an unexpected biological event," she managed to say, her large eyes fixing on Liam with a confused intensity. It seems highly illogical." Her voice, usually so precise and measured, was now a jumbled mess of staccato sounds. "An unexpected event, huh?" Liam managed to squeak out, his voice a bit higher than usual. He could feel the heat rising in his cheeks and a strange tingling sensation coursing through his body. "I would say so." What kind of event?" He felt a strange urge to touch her more, and he shook his head, trying to fight the feeling. He realized with a jolt that the strange scent was having an effect on him as well. He pulled her closer to a nearby chair, trying to focus his mind. My pheromonal output has exceeded baseline," HFY stated, her voice gaining a little clarity. "It appears I am in a mating cycle." Liam blinked, his eyes wide behind his glasses. "Mating cycle," he echoed, his mind trying to process this information. You're going through your equivalent of heat? On the weather station?" HFY nodded slowly, her eyes seeming to have glazed over. The probability was statistically insignificant. "My calculations were flawed." Her tentacles twitched, and she reached out again, this time lightly grasping Liam's arm with one of her suction cup tips. He felt a shiver go down his spine and tried not to think about the implications of that light touch. And what happens during this mating cycle? Liam asked, trying to sound calm, though his heart was hammering against his ribs. He could hear the faint sound of someone humming a tune in the next office, oblivious to the cosmic awkwardness happening on the other side of the wall. My biology dictates the acquisition of a compatible mate, HFY answered, her voice strangely direct. Her large eyes were now locked on his, and Liam felt an odd mix of panic and something else, something he couldn't quite place. A compatible mate? Liam repeated, trying to keep his voice steady. And how does one determine compatibility? HFY tilted her head, her expression a mix of confusion and, well, Liam was starting to suspect a hint of something akin to desire. Through proximity, pheromonal compatibility, and biological imperatives, she said, her tone flat. You are the closest available specimen. Liam stared at her, his mind trying to reconcile her logical explanation with the chaotic reality of the situation. Wait, are you saying that I am your option? He felt a sudden urge to laugh, but it was cut short by a sharp intake of breath. He looked down at her hand still gripping his arm, her suckers leaving tiny marks on his skin. HFY nodded again, slowly, her eyes never leaving his. Logically, yes. Your pheromonal output appears to be satisfactory. It is unexpected, but acceptable. Liam's jaw dropped. This was insane. Utterly, ridiculously insane. He had just been working through a dry, historical text and now he'd been selected as an alien's mate based on some chemical analysis. He opened his mouth to protest, but then closed it again. What could he even say? This was beyond absurd. Well, he said, finally, his voice a bit raspy. That's certainly one way to break the ice. He pushed a strand of hair out of his eyes, feeling his face flush red. He couldn't help but feel a surge of something that he recognized as a strange type of attraction, despite the ridiculousness of the situation. I must admit, HFY said, her voice regaining some of its former clarity, this is quite perplexing. My calculations were demonstrably off. Liam looked at her, a nervous chuckle escaping his lips. Perplexing is one way to put it. I'd say, we're just getting started. He felt a surge of something akin to, well, this could get very, very interesting. He cautiously helped HFY into the chair, trying to ignore the strange pull he felt towards her. He glanced at his messy desk, at the forgotten Xylo's text, and then back at the tall, opalescent alien. His life had just taken a sharp turn towards the absurd, and he was pretty sure he was going to need a lot more than synth coffee to navigate this new territory. The room was still buzzing with pheromones, and Liam knew one thing for sure, that unexpected biological event had just chosen him. And with that thought he found himself staring intently at HFY, his heart pounding an almost primal rhythm. This was going to be one hell of a translation project. Liam's office, usually a sanctuary of academic disarray, now felt like a bizarre cross between a research lab and a dating agency waiting room. HFY sat stiffly in the chair he'd managed to clear of overflowing data chips, her tentacles folded neatly in her lap, though they twitched every now and then as if impatient to be free. She held a small, flat data slate in her forefingered hand, her large eyes scanning the screen with intense focus. Liam, meanwhile, paced back and forth, running a hand through his already disheveled hair, trying to process the sheer absurdity of the situation. So, let me get this straight, Liam said, his voice tinged with a mix of amusement and disbelief. You're trying to understand human mating behavior by reading a textbook? He gestured towards the data slate with a wry smile. The title displayed on the screen, Human Courtship Rituals, the Statistical Analysis, only added to the comedic effect. HFY looked up, her opalescent skin catching the light from the overhead lamp. It is a comprehensive study of human interaction related to pairing, she stated, her tone as matter-of-fact as if she were discussing the laws of thermodynamics. The data is extensive. The probability of successful mate acquisition should be calculable. Liam raised an eyebrow, trying to keep a straight face. Calculable? You think you can calculate romance? Love? Love, HFY repeated, her head tilting slightly to one side. Is defined as a strong emotional response associated with the bonding of two individuals for reproductive purposes. It would appear to be largely influenced by pheromonal and hormonal interaction. Logically, it should be predictable. Liam chuckled, shaking his head. Oh, HFY, you're going to have a very hard time with that logic here on Earth. Humans aren't exactly logical when it comes to love. We're more like emotional chaos wrapped in a poorly explained evolutionary package. HFY was quiet for a moment, her tentacles drumming lightly on the chair's armrest. Explain, then. How does one, using your emotional chaos, acquire a mate? Liam sighed, running a hand through his hair again. Well, first of all, it's not about acquiring someone. It's more like two people finding a connection, you know? Shared interests, a sense of humor, something that makes you feel good. And usually, lots of awkward conversations, spilled drinks, and accidental hand-holding. He paused. It's definitely not about comparing pheromonal readings and choosing the closest specimen. HFY's large eyes blinked slowly. Awkward conversations? Spilled drinks? These do not appear to be statistically relevant to the mating process. The human data is inefficient. Liam couldn't help but laugh. Welcome to humanity, HFY. Efficiency is not exactly our strong suit when it comes to dating. He crossed his arms and leaned against his cluttered desk. Look, maybe we should try something less textbook and more, well, human. Let's talk about what you know about me, not just my pheromonal profile. HFY looked at him, her expression surprisingly thoughtful. Your academic specialization is xylolinguistics. You possess a deep understanding of extinct languages. You also appear to have an affinity for highly caffeinated beverages, and your workstation suggests a lack of emphasis on organization. She paused, then added, your pheromonal output is pleasant. Liam chuckled. Okay, well, you've nailed the academic part. And yes, my office is a disaster zone. But what else? What do you think of me, not what you can analyze about me? HFY's tentacles twitched again, and she looked down at her data slate for a moment, then back up at Liam. I am experiencing difficulty quantifying my subjective response. Your presence elicits certain physiological reactions that are not strictly logical. Liam's eyebrows shot up. Physiological reactions? Like what? Are your tentacles doing the tango, too? He waggled his fingers in a clumsy imitation of HFY's graceful movements, trying to lighten the mood, and he found himself strangely attracted to her slight blush. HFY's opalescent skin seemed to shimmer slightly, and she looked at Liam with a confused expression. There is a rise in my internal temperature, and a certain increase in ventral tentacle activity. She paused, then added, I do not believe the tango is an applicable analogy. Liam coughed to hide a snort of laughter. Okay, so, you're getting hot and bothered. Good to know. But how about we try some role-playing? I'll be a human, and you'll be a human who is interested in another human. This is a thing humans do, by the way. HFY looked at him with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Role-playing? This does not seem like a logical step in the mating process. Well, it's a very human step, Liam insisted, pulling up a nearby chair. Okay, so, imagine I'm someone you just met, and you find me attractive, even though my desk is a complete mess, and I can't string two coherent sentences together. Try to flirt. You know, with words. HFY was silent for a moment, her large eyes focused on Liam. Then, in a slow, deliberate monotone, she said, your cranial structure is appealing. Your olfactory output is within acceptable parameters. Your genetic profile suggests good reproductive potential. Do you require my further analysis? Liam stared at her for a long moment, then burst out laughing. Okay, that was scientifically accurate. But not exactly enticing. Try this, Hey, Liam, I really like your glasses. Are you from space? Because you're out of this world, he said, exaggerating the words. HFY remained silent for a moment, then processed the information. She tilted her head slightly and then said, your ocular accessories are functionally efficient. Your species originates on a planet, Earth. Therefore, your location is terrestrial. Are you asking if I find you visually appealing? Liam massaged his temples. This is going to be harder than I thought. He took a deep breath. Okay, let's try something different. Instead of talking, how about we do something that humans sometimes do when we try to connect? How about we share a meal? HFY seemed genuinely intrigued. Sharing a meal? Is this a significant human courting ritual? Well, it can be, Liam said with a shrug. It's a good opportunity to talk and not analyze each other's pheromonal profiles. He gestured to the door. There's a decent cafe on the other side of the hub. How about we get a non-statistical analysis of each other? HFY hesitated for a moment, her tentacles twitching again. Then, she slowly nodded. Very well. I will conduct a qualitative analysis of human interaction over nourishment. But I will also keep my data slate with me. Liam chuckled and got up, a mix of amusement and a strange flutter of excitement in his chest. Fair enough. Let's go, my tentacle tutor. It's time for a Terran tango, or at least a meal. He held out a hand to her, and after a brief moment of hesitation, HFY placed one of her four-fingered hands into his. Her skin was surprisingly soft, and Liam could feel a small shiver travel up his spine. As they walked out of his office, leaving behind the chaos of his workspace and the textbook on human mating rituals, he had the feeling that this was just the start of the most bizarre and interesting chapter of his life. The pheromones lingered in the air, a silent promise of more illogical adventures to come. The decent cafe Liam had mentioned was, in reality, a bustling, multi-species food court in the heart of Harmony Hub. The air was thick with the aroma of various galactic delicacies, from the savory scents of grilled Glabian fungi to the sweet, almost cloying fragrance of crystallized Zidonian nectar. The noise was a cacophony of different languages, the rhythmic clattering of utensils, and the hum of conversation. Liam, usually unfazed by the hubbub, found himself acutely aware of the eyes that seemed to follow him and HFY as they made their way to a relatively quiet corner table. HFY, for her part, seemed oblivious to the stares. Her opalescent skin shimmered faintly under the bright lights of the food court, and her long, elegant tentacles moved with a practiced grace that seemed almost otherworldly. She scanned the various food stalls with a detached curiosity, her large eyes analyzing the data on her slate as she walked. The variety of available comestibles is statistically significant, she commented, her voice a monotone amid the din. The efficiency of nutrient distribution is, however, questionable. Liam chuckled, glancing around at the various beings that seemed to be giving them curious or disapproving looks. Well, it's not exactly a nutrient paste processing plant, HFY. But the food is decent, and that's what matters. Try to relax a bit, okay? You're not on a science expedition here, you're having a lunch date. Or something vaguely resembling one. A lunch date, HFY repeated, looking at Liam with a mix of confusion and mild curiosity. Is this a significant human social custom? Is there a specific protocol that I should be observing? Well, there are some customs, Liam replied, leading her towards a table tucked between a potted Glabian fungus and a small fountain of what looked suspiciously like blue soda. But mostly, it involves eating and talking. And occasionally, awkward silences. He pulled out a chair for her. Here, have a seat. I'll grab us some food. Liam went to a nearby stall offering a variety of Terran classics, which was basically a fancy name for greasy sandwiches and fries. As he waited, he noticed that the stares had intensified. Several beings, mostly humans but also a few of the more xenophobic races, seemed to be watching them with barely concealed disapproval. He heard whispers, and a few snide comments, in various languages that he recognized as alien slang, all focusing on the fact that he, a human, was with HFY, an alien of the supposedly aloof Xylos race. He clenched his jaw, trying to ignore the discomfort. He was used to being the odd one out, but something about the blatant hostility made his blood boil. He grabbed 2 sandwiches and 2 large cups of what he hoped was coffee, and returned to the table, trying to keep a smile on his face. HFY was still scrutinizing the data on her slate, though Liam noticed that her tentacles had tightened slightly around the edges. "There appears to be a notable increase in observation," she commented, her voice devoid of emotion. "The percentage of visual attention directed towards our location is above average." "Is this usual?" Liam sighed, placing the food on the table. "Unfortunately, yes. Some people aren't too happy about humans and aliens interacting, especially when it looks like it could be for more than just interacting. There's a group here on the hub, a kind of xenophobic club, that doesn't exactly approve of mixing. They call themselves the Planetary Purity Brigade, or something equally dramatic." HFY looked at him, her eyes large and unblinking. "Planetary purity? This is a illogical classification. The concept of purity is not scientifically definable." "Well, you're not wrong," Liam said, taking a bite of his sandwich. "But these guys are not exactly driven by logic. They're driven by fear and ignorance. And a whole lot of old-fashioned prejudice." He gestured towards a group of 3 humans sitting nearby, whispering and glaring at them. One of them, a burly man with a shaved head and a scowl that could curdle milk, kept shaking his head and muttering to his companions. Liam rolled his eyes. "So, do these Planetary Purity Brigade members pose a potential threat?" HFY asked, her voice still calm, but Liam noticed a slight flicker of concern in her usually impassive gaze. "Nah, they're mostly bark, no bite," Liam said, trying to reassure her. "They mostly spread rumors and make rude comments, try to make people feel uncomfortable, but they haven't done anything serious yet." He took a sip of his coffee. "Anyway, let's not worry about them. Let's try to have a relatively normal lunch." He took another bite of his sandwich. "So, what do you think of this food? Is it statistically sound, according to your calculations?" HFY picked up the other sandwich, her tentacles carefully holding it steady. She took a small bite, her expression unchanging. "The nutritional components appear adequate. The texture is unusual. The overall experience is novel." Liam chuckled. "Novel? Okay, so not exactly a ringing endorsement. But hey, at least you're trying. Now, let's talk." So the Planetary Purity Brigade have more things to gossip about. They talked for a while, about HFY's research, about Liam's love of ancient languages, and about their individual upbringing. Despite the distractions of the constant stares, Liam started feeling more comfortable, and he was genuinely enjoying the conversation. HFY seemed less stiff, too, her tentacles moving with less restraint, her occasional comments becoming less analytical and more observational. Suddenly, the burly man from the nearby table stood up, his face red with anger. He walked towards their table, his companions following close behind. "Hey, you! Human," he barked, pointing at Liam with a thick finger. "You think you're so special, huh? Rubbing elbows with the aliens? You're a disgrace to our planet." Liam sighed, putting his sandwich down. "Look, I'm just having lunch. Can't you leave me alone?" "Leave you alone," the man sneered. "You're consorting with a species that's probably going to enslave us all. You should be ashamed of yourself." He turned to HFY, his face contorted in disgust. "And you, space squid? You belong back in whatever dark hole you crawled out of." HFY was silent for a moment, then she turned her gaze to the man. "Your statements are factually inaccurate. The Xylos do not engage in acts of enslavement. And I am not, technically, at Space Squid. The man laughed, a harsh, unpleasant sound. "Oh yeah? Well, maybe we should send you back where you came from, you and your human pet." He stepped closer, and his companions began to move forward as well. Liam felt his own anger rising, but before he could react, HFY did something completely unexpected. She stood up, her tentacles moving with surprising speed, and before Liam could blink, she grabbed one of the man's arms. She then pulled him towards her, her face coming close to his, her large eyes filled with a cold, analytical gaze. "Your heart rate is elevated," she said, her voice dangerously low. "Your pheromonal output suggests a high degree of stress, and your cognitive functions seem impaired. I do believe, according to your own physiological data, you are experiencing a biological malfunction." The man stared at her, his face paling. He sputtered, trying to pull away, but HFY's grip on his arm was surprisingly strong. "Let me go, you. HFY released him with a small push, and the man stumbled back, his face a mask of fear and confusion. His companions gaped at her, their bravado vanishing. HFY turned back to Liam. "I believe that their disruptive behavior has been temporarily neutralized." She sat down again, as if she had just completed a particularly complex mathematical equation. "Shall we resume our lunch?" Liam just stared at her, his jaw hanging open. He blinked. Then a wide grin spread across his face. "HFY," he said, a burst of laughter escaping his lips. "You are absolutely amazing." The xenophobic group, stunned and humiliated, slunk away from the food court, their threat silenced by HFY's unexpected display of power. Liam and HFY resumed their lunch, the tension in the air noticeably lighter. They shared a quiet look, a mix of understanding and amusement passing between them. As they ate, Liam had a thought. "You know," he said with a sly grin. "I think I know how we can get back at them." He paused. "How do you feel about public displays of affection?" HFY blinked. "Public displays of affection? Is that a form of strategic counteraction?" Liam laughed. "You could say that. It's going to make them see red. And, well, I want to see if your tentacles still do the tango, you know?" He added with a wink. And with that, the lunch took a turn towards the even more illogical and unexpected, leaving Liam with the feeling that he had just stepped into the most hilariously complicated love story in the galaxy. Back in the relative safety of Liam's chaotic office, the air still buzzed with the aftermath of the food court incident. HFY was back to her data slate, her tentacles flying across the screen as she meticulously charted and graphed various data points. Liam, perched on the edge of his desk, watched her with a mixture of fascination and amusement. He was starting to realize that the Xylo's way of processing emotions was a blend of complicated algorithms and surprisingly straightforward biological imperatives. "So," Liam began, breaking the comfortable silence, "are you still trying to figure out the why of us?" He gestured between them, a wry smile playing on his lips. HFY looked up, her large eyes focused on him with an unnerving intensity. "I am attempting to discern the root cause of my altered behavior. The mating cycle, while biologically predetermined, does not fully explain the specific parameters of my attraction to you. The data is inconclusive." She tapped a few keys on her slate and a series of complex graphs popped up on the screen. "I have identified several potential factors: proximity, shared environment, common academic interests, and your somewhat erratic human charm." She paused, her head tilting slightly. "The latter is proving the most challenging to quantify." Liam laughed, running a hand through his hair. "My erratic charm? Is that what you're calling it now? I prefer it endearingly awkward, but hey, I'll take it." He hopped off the desk and wandered over to the window, looking out at the sprawling lights of the space station. "You know, it's kind of funny. I've spent years studying your language, trying to understand your culture, and now I'm trying to understand you. And I'm pretty sure my education is failing me spectacularly." HFY was quiet for a moment, her tentacles still moving across the screen. "The parameters of human emotion are remarkably inefficient. There are so many variables, so many conflicting data points, that predicting behavior is virtually impossible. Logic dictates that such chaotic behavior is detrimental to overall success. Maybe, Liam said, turning back to face her, but maybe that's the beauty of it. The chaos, the spontaneity, the unexpected. It's not always about efficiency, sometimes it's about connection, you know? It's about taking risks, going a little off script. He leaned back against the window, his gaze locking with hers. And sometimes, he added with a sly smile, it's about kissing someone, just because they're there. HFY blinked slowly, her opalescent skin seeming to shimmer slightly. Kissing? She repeated, her voice a low hum. This appears to be a common human courting behavior. It involves the pressing together of two sets of lips. The data I have collected suggests it is often associated with heightened emotional states. Liam chuckled. Okay, so you have that covered. But you're missing the why. It's not just a pressing of lips, it's a sharing of something. An exchange of feelings. It's like a dance. He paused, then added, a really close-up, face-to-face tango. HFY's tentacles twitched again, and her gaze shifted from Liam's eyes down to his mouth. Her breathing seemed to hitch, and Liam was suddenly aware of a strange tension filling the small office. I do not fully comprehend the logic, she said, her voice softer now. But I am willing to explore this dance. Liam's heart skipped a beat, and he felt a familiar heat rising in his cheeks. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because, as it turns out, I'm rather fond of this particular dance. He took a step closer to her, and HFY finally put down her data slate, her gaze never leaving his. You have mentioned that human behavior is influenced by emotional chaos, she stated, her voice still carefully measured. Do you experience emotional chaos in relation to me? Liam paused for a moment, considering her question. Yeah, I think I do, he said, a small, sincere smile spreading across his face. I feel drawn to you, HFY. I'm fascinated by your mind, your logic, and your tentacles. You're unlike anyone I've ever met, and honestly, I'm completely out of my depth here. He chuckled. But in a good way. HFY's eyes widened, and her tentacles relaxed, resting softly against her body. Your admission is noteworthy. My own data suggests I am experiencing similar feelings. The term, according to your database, is longing? Longing? Liam repeated, a little surprised. Yeah, that's probably it. It's a mix of wanting to be close to someone and a little bit of nervousness, I guess. It's messy, illogical, and sometimes a bit terrifying. HFY was silent for a long moment, her head tilting slightly. Terrifying? Why would that be? Liam shrugged. Because it makes you vulnerable, I guess. It means you're risking being hurt or not being reciprocated, you know? It's a leap of faith. He looked at her with a serious expression. You're not exactly known for your vulnerability, HFY. HFY's expression softened, and she finally seemed to relax, a subtle shift that Liam recognized as a sign of her letting down her guard. My people emphasize logic and reason. The concept of vulnerability is considered a weakness. But sometimes, Liam said, taking another step closer, weakness is the strongest thing we have. He reached out and gently touched one of her tentacles with his fingertips, his gaze never leaving hers. He felt a small shiver travel up his arm, and saw a similar reaction in HFY. We're not always going to be logical, HFY. We're just human, and sometimes we feel things that don't make sense. And those things can still be valid? HFY asked, her voice a whisper. Liam nodded. Absolutely. More than valid. Sometimes, they're the most valid things we can feel. He moved closer, his hand now cupping her cheek, his thumb gently stroking her opalescent skin. He could feel the warmth radiating from her, and his breath hitched as their faces came closer. And sometimes, he added, his voice husky, the only logical thing to do is to stop analyzing and just feel. He leaned in, his lips meeting hers, tentatively at first, then with a growing sense of certainty. He felt her tentacles move, one of them gently wrapping around his waist, pulling him closer, and he closed his eyes, letting the illogical dance of emotions guide him. The kiss was soft, sweet, and filled with a strange, electric energy. It was an exchange of not just physical intimacy but a merging of two different worlds. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were slightly breathless. Liam could see a flicker of something that looked like wonder in HFY's eyes. That, she said, her voice a low hum, was statistically unexpected. Liam laughed, his heart still racing. I know, right? But you know what? I think I like unexpected. He smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. I think I like it a lot. HFY looked at him, her head tilting slightly. Then perhaps, she said, her own small smile forming, we should explore more unexpected variables. Logically speaking, it might be illuminating. Liam chuckled. You know what? I think that's a very logical idea. And with that, they were both drawn into the complexities of their illogical, messy, and utterly unique connection, a human and an alien dancing a tango that defied all logic and every textbook in the galaxy. The idea had started as a well-intentioned effort to bridge their cultural differences, to find common ground beyond pheromones and data analysis. Liam had suggested a date, a proper, human-style date, complete with activities from both their respective cultures. He had imagined a pleasant afternoon of shared experiences, a light-hearted exploration of their contrasting worlds. What he hadn't anticipated was the sheer comedic chaos that would ensue when Xylo's logic collided head-on with Terran's spontaneity. Their date started with a deep dive into Xylo's intellectual pursuits. Liam found himself facing a complex, three-dimensional logic puzzle that HFY had brought from her personal collection. The puzzle, a series of interconnected crystalline shapes that shifted and rearranged themselves according to a hidden algorithm, was designed to challenge even the most advanced Xylo's minds. The objective, HFY explained, her tentacles gracefully manipulating the puzzle's pieces, is to arrange the crystalline structures in a pattern that satisfies the given parameters of spatial harmonic resonance. Liam stared at the puzzle, his head swimming with the complex terminology. Right, he said, trying to sound confident, spatial harmonic resonance. Got it. So, basically, I have to put the shiny bits in the right shiny holes. HFY tilted her head slightly. That is a simplified interpretation. The objective involves an understanding of the intricate geometric relationships between the various elements. Liam took a deep breath and began to try to manipulate the puzzle. He quickly discovered that the geometric relationships were not his strong suit. The crystalline pieces seemed to defy his every attempt to move them, shifting and sliding away from his fingertips as if mocking his efforts. He spent the next half hour in a state of near frustration, his brow furrowed, his tongue poking out from the corner of his mouth, as he tried to make sense of the perplexing puzzle. HFY, meanwhile, watched him with a mix of amusement and detached curiosity. Her tentacles moved with a fluid, almost hypnotic grace as she casually manipulated the pieces, solving intricate sequences in mere seconds. It was like watching a concert pianist perform while Liam was struggling to play chopsticks on a broken keyboard. Your approach, she observed, her voice as even as ever, is inefficient. Your methodology is random. It is as though you are attempting to force the structures, rather than allowing them to flow. Liam sighed, running a hand through his already messy hair. Maybe I'm not built for spatial harmonic resonance. Maybe I'm more of a spatially confused resonance. Can we move on to something a little less cerebrally challenging? Maybe something more physical? HFY considered his request for a moment. Very well. We can engage in an activity that requires physical exertion. There is an orbital recreation facility on this level. I have studied the available human options. The orbital recreation facility, as Liam soon discovered, was a zero-gravity gymnasium with various workout equipment and holographic training programs. The experience was, to put it mildly, disorienting. Liam found himself bouncing off the walls, his limbs flailing wildly as he tried to navigate the weightless environment. HFY, on the other hand, moved through the zero gravity with an effortless grace, her tentacles providing her with a natural sense of balance and control. She had selected a program of human-style calisthenics, which involved a series of floating push-ups and zero-G lunges. Liam, already struggling to maintain his equilibrium, found himself in a state of utter bewilderment as HFY executed each movement with precision and perfect form. "Your technique," she stated, observing Liam's flailing attempts to perform a zero-G push-up, "is unorthodox. Your spatial awareness is limited. Your core musculature is underdeveloped." Liam groaned, grabbing onto a nearby handrail to keep himself from spinning uncontrollably. "Okay, I get it. I'm terrible at this zero-G workout thing. I should probably stick to earthbound activities." HFY floated over to him, her tentacles gracefully slowing her momentum. "Perhaps," she said, her gaze focused on Liam, "we should engage in an activity that reflects your natural environment and your human culture." And this was where the chaos really began. Liam had decided to teach HFY the art of human cooking. He had chosen a simple recipe, pasta with tomato sauce. What could possibly go wrong with pasta? He had reasoned. The answer, as it turned out, was everything. HFY, armed with her data slate and a meticulous set of measuring utensils, approached the cooking process with a level of precision that would make a surgeon blush. She measured every ingredient down to the microgram, her tentacles moving with almost surgical accuracy. She even had a series of charts and graphs, outlining the optimal cooking times and temperatures for every component of the dish. "The water must reach exactly 100 degrees Celsius, she stated, adjusting the temperature of the stovetop with meticulous care. "The ratio of pasta to water must be maintained at a precise 1:8. "The sauce requires exactly 437 grams of tomatoes, and precisely 12 grams of basil, 5 grams of oregano, and 3 grams of garlic." Liam, meanwhile, was trying to maintain his sanity as he watched her carefully arrange the pasta noodles in a perfectly symmetrical spiral within the pot of boiling water. "HFY, honey," he said, trying to inject some levity into the situation, "we're not building a space station, we're making pasta. Try to relax a little, okay?" He took the spice jars from her and proceeded to sprinkle what he deemed a reasonable amount of spices into the sauce pot. HFY stared at him, her expression unchanged. "Your method is imprecise. The optimal flavor profile requires exact measurements. The human approach to cooking appears chaotically random." She reached for a datapad and began to take notes. Liam chuckled, shaking his head. "Okay, you're right. Maybe I'm more of a sprinkle and hope a cook. But hey, you know what? It's part of the fun. It's about trusting your instincts, going with the flow, and adding a little extra when your heart tells you to." The final straw, however, was the sauce. Liam, in a moment of reckless abandon, had decided to add a dash of red pepper flakes to spice up the sauce. What he didn't expect was HFY's reaction to the heat. She took a tentative bite of the sauce, and her eyes immediately widened. Her tentacles stiffened, and her opalescent skin seemed to flush a faint shade of pink. "There appears to be an unexpected, thermal reaction," she stated, her voice strained. "The sensation is intense. My internal sensors are detecting a significant shift in my body's temperature regulation." Liam watched her with alarm, grabbing a glass of water. "HFY, are you okay?" HFY, however, seemed more intrigued than distressed. She took another bite of the sauce, her eyes fixed on Liam with a newfound intensity. "The sensation is curiously pleasant," she said, her voice a low hum. "It elicits a non-logical physiological reaction. This spice is intriguing." Liam blinked. "So, you like the spice?" "The spice," HFY repeated, her gaze never leaving Liam's, "is stimulating. It creates a notable internal disruption. It is acceptable." Liam couldn't help but laugh. He pulled out his own chair and sat down next to her. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because, as it turns out, I've got a whole spice rack full of disruptions. HFY returned his smile, a small but genuine smile. Then perhaps we should continue to explore these stimulating disruptions, she said, her voice a soft whisper. She picked up a piece of pasta, her gaze never leaving Liam's. The dance, she said as she fed him the pasta, continues. As they shared the rest of the pasta, the tension between them was a mixture of humor, attraction, and the surprising comfort of learning how different they were from each other. The date, though chaotic and sometimes absurd, had been illuminating, proving that sometimes, the most unexpected connections were the most rewarding ones. And as the day wore on, Liam realized that he was starting to crave more of HFY's unexpected disruptions, both on his taste buds and in his heart. The relatively peaceful bubble that Liam and HFY had managed to create was about to burst. The whispers and stares in the food court, the subtle disapproval from certain corners of the hub, all had escalated into something more concrete, official scrutiny. Their increasingly public relationship had not gone unnoticed, and it was starting to attract unwanted attention from both the human and Xylos authorities. It began with a summons. Liam was asked to report to the Harmony Hub's administrative office, a sterile, brightly lit space that always made him feel like he was being called into the principal's office. He was greeted by a stern-faced human bureaucrat, a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, who wasted no time in laying out the official position on his unconventional interactions with HFY. "Mr. O'Connell," she said, her voice clipped and precise, "your behavior has been deemed inappropriate. Your close relationship with Ms. HFY has been noted, and it is causing concern amongst the human population on this station." She tapped a datapad on her desk, displaying a series of reports and complaints from concerned citizens. There are fears about potential diplomatic implications, and the risk of creating a disruption in the delicate balance between the species. Liam leaned back in his chair, trying to maintain a calm demeanor, though his heart was pounding in his chest. "With all due respect," he said, his voice tinged with a hint of irony, "I'm not disrupting any delicate balance. I'm just having a relationship. It happens, even between different species." The bureaucrat raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "A relationship? Mr. O'Connell, you are engaging in interactions that are outside established protocols. The Xylos mating cycle is a sensitive matter, and it is not our place to interfere or encourage such unusual developments." "But HFY isn't just a mating cycle," Liam insisted, his voice rising slightly. "She's an individual. She's a person. We are both adults, and we're both choosing this." The bureaucrat sighed, clearly not buying his argument. "Your personal feelings are irrelevant, Mr. O'Connell. The primary concern here is the stability and security of the hub, and your behavior is considered a potential risk." She handed him a document. "You are officially advised to refrain from further interactions with Ms. HFY until the completion of her mating cycle." Liam stared at the document, his jaw tightening. "You're telling me that I can't see her? That I have to cut all ties because she's going through a perfectly natural biological process?" "Those are the terms," the bureaucrat said, her voice flat. "Failure to comply will result in further disciplinary action. Is that clear?" Liam stood up, his hands clenched into fists. "Crystal clear," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "And completely unacceptable." He turned and walked out of the office, his mind racing. He knew that this wasn't just about him, it was about HFY, about their right to choose, and their refusal to be defined by arbitrary rules and regulations. He went straight to HFY's living quarters, a meticulously organized space filled with holographic displays and data analysis tools. He found her studying a complex equation, her tentacles moving with their usual graceful efficiency. He told her about the summons, about the demands to separate, about the utter ridiculousness of the situation. HFY listened in silence, her expression carefully neutral, though Liam could sense a flicker of something that looked like anger in her usually calm gaze. "The logic behind their directive is flawed," she stated, her voice dangerously low. "They are attempting to control a natural process using arbitrary societal constructs." "Exactly," Liam said, pacing back and forth. They think they can just dictate who we can be with, how we can feel. It's insane. I'm not going to let them do that, HFY. I'm not going to let them tell us who to love. HFY stood up, her tentacles flexing slightly. The concept of love, she said, her gaze locking with Liam's, is a complex variable in the human experience. But it does not, from my analysis, appear to be influenced by external directives. Logically speaking, we should be able to continue to interact with each other. Their rules are irrational. So, what are we going to do? Liam asked, his eyes bright with determination. Are we going to let them push us around? HFY paused for a moment, her tentacles touching her chin thoughtfully. We should not engage in a direct confrontation, as that would lead to more unwanted attention. But we can navigate the situation using more efficient methodology. If they do not want us to interact publicly, we shall interact privately. Liam grinned, understanding her plan. I like the way you think, HFY. We'll do it your way. We'll find a way to bend their rules without breaking them. We'll show them that love is not something that can be controlled, or dictated, or suppressed by a bunch of bureaucrats and outdated regulations. And so, they began to operate in secret. They moved their meetings to the more obscure corners of the station, utilizing hidden passageways and unused maintenance tunnels. They communicated using coded messages, leaving data chips hidden in unlikely places and sending encrypted signals across the station's communication network. They turned their forbidden relationship into a clandestine game, a thrilling rebellion against the authorities that were trying to keep them apart. They had clandestine meals in deserted docking bays, shared secret kisses in shadowy maintenance corridors, and analyzed ancient texts in hidden research labs, their connection becoming stronger as the risk intensified. But the authorities were not easily fooled. Their hidden romance was beginning to draw unwanted attention again, and they could feel the pressure mounting. And then, HFY's superior officer arrived, a high-ranking Xylos dignitary who had been sent to bring her home and end her mating cycle. This new arrival brought a whole new level of pressure. They were forced into hiding, but the new Xylos officer was actively looking for HFY, determined to end her mating cycle and her relationship with Liam. They knew that time was running out, and they had to make a choice. They either surrender to the expectations and the rules, or they make a stand. And as Liam and HFY found themselves huddled in a forgotten corner of the station, they knew what they were going to do. They were going to fight for their right to love, to defy the rules, and to create their own path, even if it meant breaking the rules, bending the system, and embracing the beautiful chaos of their unexpected connection. The time for subterfuge is over, HFY said, her voice resolute. We must act before they separate us. Logic dictates that we must take our fate into our own hands. She took Liam's hand, her tentacles moving to grasp his tightly. It seems that your emotional chaos is, at times, necessary. Liam squeezed her hand in return. He looked at her, his heart full of love and determination. You're absolutely right, HFY. Let's show them that rules are made to be broken, and love is made to be celebrated, no matter how illogical it may seem. And as they stepped out of the shadows, ready to face whatever was coming, they were both acutely aware that they were no longer just individuals. They were a force of nature, a testament to the power of love, and the undeniable bond between a human and an alien who were determined to write their own story, even if it meant rewriting the entire galaxy's rulebook. They were done hiding, and they were ready to break the rules. The quiet rebellion that Liam and HFY had been waging in the shadows of Harmony Hub was about to explode into full-blown chaos. The xenophobic Planetary Purity Brigade, emboldened by the arrival of HFY's superior officer and the general unease their relationship was creating, decided to take matters into their own hands. They had been watching, lurking in the shadows, and now, they were ready to make their move. Liam and HFY were meeting in a hidden section of the station's botanical gardens, a space of lush vegetation and simulated sunlight that provided a rare sense of tranquility. They were discussing their next move when the light suddenly flickered and died, plunging the gardens into darkness. They heard the sound of heavy footsteps approaching, and the unmistakable voices of the xenophobic group. "All right, space lover," shouted the burly leader of the group, his voice distorted by a modulator. "Time to hand over the alien. We're putting an end to this disgusting relationship." Liam grabbed HFY's hand, pulling her behind a large cluster of bioluminescent plants. "Looks like they've decided to skip the subtlety and go straight to kidnapping," Liam whispered. "What's the plan, strategist?" HFY was silent for a moment, her tentacles flexing slightly. "The area is not conducive to direct engagement. The layout of this section suggests a compromised environment. Our best option is evasion. We must seek a less predictable location." Liam grinned. "Evasion, who? I like the sound of that. Any suggestions for less predictable locations?" "The Central Maintenance Hub," HFY replied. "Its structure is not logical, and the sensor configuration is erratic." Liam nodded, his eyes sparkling with a mixture of adrenaline and excitement. "Maintenance hub it is. Let's give these guys a run for their money." They moved quickly and quietly through the darkened botanical gardens, their senses heightened. They navigated the twisting pathways, using the shadows to their advantage. The xenophobic group, clumsy and loud, were hot on their trail, their threats echoing through the darkened space. As they reached the garden's exit, they found the path blocked by two burly members of the brigade, their faces grim and determined. "Nowhere to run, space trash," one of them growled, raising a stun baton. HFY, with a speed that surprised Liam, swiftly moved, grabbing one of the men's arms, her tentacles wrapping around the stun baton, crushing it in her grasp. She used the momentum to spin the man around and throw him into the other one, sending them both crashing into a nearby planter. They were knocked out cold. "Impressive," Liam commented, a grin spreading across his face. "You're not just a math genius, you're a master of disarming xenophobes. Maybe we should add that to your resume." HFY simply nodded, her expression calm. "Efficiency is key. We must proceed quickly." They made their way to the Central Maintenance Hub, a labyrinthine space filled with pipes, wires, and various mechanical components. The lights flickered erratically, creating a disorienting atmosphere. It was a confusing maze that tested even Liam's somewhat limited knowledge of the station's layout. "I must confess," HFY said, as they navigated through a maze of pipes, "your species' insistence on creating maintenance tunnels in such an illogical manner is perplexing." "Hey, we're not all geniuses, okay?" Liam said, bumping his head on a low-hanging pipe. "Some of us just bumble through." As they made their way further into the hub, they could hear the xenophobic group closing in. They were clearly determined to capture HFY, their determination fueled by a mix of fear, anger, and misguided nationalism. "We can't keep running forever," Liam said, his breathing a little ragged. "We need to turn the tables. We need to use this space to our advantage." HFY stopped, her head tilting slightly. "I have identified a potential strategy. This hub is primarily a system of interconnected conduits for energy distribution. If we can manipulate the network, we can create a localized power surge." Liam's eyes lit up. "A power surge? I like the sound of that. You think you can create enough chaos to knock them off their feet?" HFY's lips curled into a small, almost mischievous smile. "I can create enough chaos to render their equipment unusable, their senses disoriented, and their strategy ineffective. And, I suspect, some of their clothing will become electrically charged." Liam chuckled. "I think I'm starting to enjoy your definition of efficient. Let's do it." They found a control panel that regulated the hub's power distribution. HFY began to work her magic, her tentacles flying across the panel, manipulating the various circuits with her customary precision. Liam, meanwhile, kept watch, his heart pounding in his chest. As the xenophobes closed in, yelling and banging on the walls, HFY executed her plan. The hub's lights flickered violently, and a surge of raw energy coursed through the maintenance tunnels. The xenophobes were thrown off balance, their stun batons short-circuiting, their comm units crackling and dying. Some of them were thrown against the walls by the sudden electromagnetic pulse. That was remarkably effective, Liam said, his eyes wide with admiration. You're not just brilliant, you're seriously dangerous. HFY looked at him, her gaze intense. The primary objective, however, was not merely to disarm them. The secondary objective was to create an opportunity. She moved quickly, leading Liam to a small, overlooked maintenance shaft. We should exit the hub through this alternate route. As they climbed through the narrow shaft, Liam could hear the xenophobes yelling and stumbling around in the darkened hub, their plans completely thwarted. He looked at HFY, his heart filled with a complex mix of awe, gratitude, and love. You saved me back there, he said, his voice soft. You didn't have to, but you did. You risked everything. HFY stopped, turning to face him. Your existence has become statistically significant to my biological imperative. I could not allow you to come to harm. Liam took her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. You're more than just a mating cycle to me, HFY. You're everything. He moved closer, his gaze searching hers. I think I'm falling in love with you, tentacles and all. HFY was silent for a moment, her large eyes filled with a depth of emotion that made Liam's heart ache. Your admission is reciprocated, she said, her voice a soft whisper. My physiological responses and my internal analysis suggest I am experiencing a similar, illogical phenomenon. She took a deep breath, her grip on Liam's hand tightening. This connection we have, it transcends pheromones, it transcends logic. It is a choice. I choose you, Liam O'Connell. And as they shared a kiss in the cramped maintenance shaft, their lips meeting with a passion that defied all rules and regulations, they both knew that they were in this together. They were not just a human and an alien, they were two individuals who had found something real, something profound, in the most unexpected of circumstances. They had defied their cultures, and now they had to defy the xenophobes as well. And they were going to do it together, with intelligence, bravery, and a touch of chaotic, illogical love. The rescue from the maintenance hub had catapulted Liam and HFY into the full glare of public attention. Their story, once a whispered rumor, was now a sensation, broadcast across the various communication networks of Harmony Hub and beyond. The xenophobic group's failed attempt to kidnap HFY had backfired spectacularly, drawing even more attention to their relationship. Now, the diplomatic machinery was grinding into motion, and Liam and HFY found themselves at the center of a media circus and a political minefield. The first official engagement was a joint press conference, a bizarre affair that felt more like a theatrical performance than a serious discourse. Liam and HFY found themselves sitting on a brightly lit stage, facing a sea of reporters, their faces illuminated by camera flashes. Representatives from both the human and the Xylos governments were also present, their faces carefully neutral, their bodies radiating an air of tense diplomacy. Mr. O'Connell, a human reporter began, her voice amplified by the microphone, can you explain the nature of your relationship with Ms. HFY? Liam took a deep breath, glancing at HFY, who sat beside him, her tentacles folded neatly in her lap, her expression as serene as ever. We care about each other, Liam said, trying to find the right words. We have a connection that goes beyond our species, our cultures. We've learned to respect and value each other's differences. It's love, I guess. The word hung in the air for a moment, a surprisingly simple yet complex concept in this multi-species gathering. A Xylos reporter then took the stage, her voice precise and measured. Ms. HFY, your actions have deviated significantly from established Xylos protocols. Do you have any comment on the diplomatic ramifications of your unconventional behavior? HFY looked directly at the reporter, her eyes calm and unwavering. My actions are a result of a personal choice. They are not indicative of a shift in Xylos policy or diplomatic intentions. My focus is on my personal research and my relationship with Mr. O'Connell. As adults, we have made a conscious decision to continue exploring the potential of that relationship. Liam watched her, his heart swelling with pride. He admired her honesty, her refusal to conform to the expectations of her culture. The questions continued, ranging from the mundane to the bizarre, from serious diplomatic concerns to outright sensationalism. Some reporters focused on the differences between humans and Xylos, questioning the biological feasibility of their relationship. Others wanted to know about the details of their courtship rituals, their faces a mix of curiosity and prurient interest. Liam tried to answer honestly, and often with humor, injecting some light-heartedness into the tense atmosphere. He spoke about HFY's brilliance, her intelligence, and her surprisingly charming awkwardness. He talked about how they had learned from each other, how they had grown together, how their differences had become a source of strength. HFY, for her part, addressed the more technical questions with her usual precision, her explanations sometimes bordering on the incomprehensible for the human reporters. She spoke about her studies, about her logical approach to life, but she also spoke about her feelings for Liam, in a way that was both heartfelt and uniquely HFY. As the press conference came to an end, Liam and HFY knew that this was just the beginning. They had won a battle, but the war, the diplomatic war, had just begun. Their next hurdle was an official meeting with the diplomatic representatives of both Earth and Xylos. This was held in a sterile, soundproof chamber where Liam and HFY sat opposite a panel of stern-faced officials. The representatives grilled them on every aspect of their relationship, their motives, and their intentions. Mr. O'Connell, a human diplomat, said, his voice cold and calculating, "You understand that your relationship with Ms. HFY has the potential to disrupt diplomatic relations between Earth and the Xylos? The Earth government cannot endorse what many see as an aberration." Liam clenched his jaw, trying to remain calm. "It's not an aberration, it's a human emotion. I happen to love her, and she seems to reciprocate my feelings." "Feelings are unreliable," the diplomat retorted. "We must look at the practicalities, the potential impact on trade agreements, security protocols, and cultural exchange." A Xylos representative then spoke, her voice low and measured. "Ms. HFY, your actions have caused considerable concern within Xylos society. Your deviation from established mating cycles and social norms is unprecedented. Your choice of partner seems to ignore all parameters of logic and compatibility." HFY looked directly at the representative, her gaze unwavering. "My choice is a product of my own reasoning. It is my life, my research, my biological imperatives, and it is my right to choose. I have analyzed Mr. O'Connell and have determined that he is acceptable." "Acceptable? You are talking about a human. A species with limited logical parameters and limited control over their emotional states." Liam felt his blood boil. "Hey, just because we're not as obsessed with logic as you guys are, doesn't mean we're not capable of love, respect, or commitment. In some ways, maybe we're better at it because we're not controlled by endless formulas and endless data sets." The Xylos representative looked at him with disdain. "Commitment? A human construct? Based on volatile emotions?" Liam leaned forward, his eyes locking with hers. "Yeah, that, documentaries, and even released a holographic performance of Liam playing the Earth-based guitar, and HFY accompanying him with alien sounds that only her species could produce. They were not just a couple, they were a cultural phenomenon. And through it all, they stayed true to themselves. They refused to let the pressure, the scrutiny, or the endless debates change who they were or how they felt about each other. They were human and Xylos, logical and emotional, chaotic and precise, a combination that was as surprising as it was perfectly suited for each other. As the diplomatic dance continued, Liam and HFY knew that they had a long way to go. But they were ready for the challenge. They were ready to redefine the rules, to break down barriers, and to show the galaxy that love was a force that could not be controlled, suppressed, or denied, no matter how illogical it seemed. And in the end, perhaps the illogical was exactly what they needed. The relentless whirlwind of public scrutiny, diplomatic meetings, and media appearances had finally begun to subside. HFY's mating cycle, the initial catalyst for their chaotic romance, had come to an end. The pheromonal storm that had brought them together had calmed, and Liam and HFY now faced a new challenge, deciding what to do next. The biological imperative had faded, and what remained was the real test of their connection, a choice they had to make with their minds and their hearts. They found themselves in Liam's office, a space that felt strangely peaceful now, after the recent chaos. The data chips and translation journals were neatly stacked. The air was devoid of the strange scents that had once filled the room. They were surrounded by the remnants of their shared journey, a reminder of the unexpected path that they had taken together. Liam was sitting on the edge of his desk, nervously running his hand through his hair. HFY was standing by the window, her gaze focused on the twinkling lights of the space station, her tentacles moving with a slow, almost contemplative grace. So, Liam began, breaking the silence, his voice a little hesitant. The mating cycle is over. The pheromones are gone. We're not biologically obligated to each other anymore. HFY turned to face him, her large eyes calm and steady. That is correct. The biological imperative has subsided. My analysis of our physiological parameters confirms that there are no hormonal or pheromonal influences driving our current interactions. The choice, therefore, is now entirely ours. Liam's heart skipped a beat. He had been wondering how she would react if the absence of the biological drive would diminish her feelings for him. He had poured out his heart, his soul, in the past few weeks, and had found that she reciprocated in her own Xylos way. Now, the time came to see if their connection was real, or just a passing biological storm. I have to admit, I was a bit worried, Liam said, a nervous chuckle escaping his lips. I wasn't sure if this was all a biological thing, or if there was something real between us. The last few weeks have been intense. HFY nodded, her expression thoughtful. The intensity was considerable. But my analysis suggests that the events were not purely driven by the mating cycle. My subjective experiences are not easily quantified, but it is my conclusion that our bond has evolved beyond a purely biological connection. She paused for a moment, and for a second Liam thought she was accessing a database of the human emotions. I have observed that the human concept of love is often described as a choice, a conscious decision to commit to another individual, based on mutual respect, admiration, and an emotional attachment. Liam smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached his eyes. Yeah, I think you've nailed it. And that's how I feel about you, HFY. I love you for who you are, for your brilliance, your honesty, your tentacled awkwardness. I choose you, HFY, now, and for the future, whatever that may be. He took a step towards her, and HFY closed the distance, her tentacles gently wrapping around his waist, pulling him closer. My data analysis suggests that a continued interaction with you is beneficial. You challenge my perspective, you broaden my understanding of human behavior, and you make me feel. The feeling, although illogical, is, at times, not entirely unpleasant. And you do indeed smell statistically acceptable. She paused, looking at him intently. I choose you too, Liam O'Connell. Liam's heart swelled with an overwhelming sense of joy. He had found love in the most unlikely of places, with the most unexpected partner. Their bond was a testament to the power of connection, a testament to the beauty of differences, and a testament to the fact that love, in all its messy, illogical glory, could conquer all. So, Liam said, his voice husky, what does the future hold for us then? More clandestine meetings in maintenance tunnels, or are we going to try for something a little more above board? HFY considered his question for a moment. The maintenance tunnels are no longer necessary. My personal data has been shared on the official Xylos channels, and it has been determined that my interactions with you are, while unconventional, ultimately harmless. She paused, a thoughtful expression on her face. I have been considering a joint research project, combining my expertise in advanced mathematics and social analysis with your knowledge of linguistics and ancient cultures. I propose we pursue this project at Harmony Hub. We can develop new techniques of communication, and establish a new methodology for understanding cultures that have had contact with each other. It could be significantly beneficial. Liam's eyes lit up. A joint research project? I love it! We can work together, learn together, maybe even teach a few classes on intercultural communication. And, maybe, we can make sure no one is ever judged for who they choose to love. HFY nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. That would be acceptable. And I propose that we also create a support group. We can provide guidance to others who wish to engage in multi-species interactions. We could call it a Harmony Hub Hearts. Liam laughed. Harmony Hub Hearts? That's perfect. You're a genius, HFY. It is simply a logical observation of the best approach to take, HFY replied, but her tone suggested a playful tease. They spent the rest of the day making plans, their excitement palpable. They finalized their research proposal, developed a detailed syllabus for their classes, and started brainstorming ideas for their Harmony Hub Hearts support group. They were creating a future for themselves, a future built on love, respect, and a shared commitment to understanding and accepting differences. As the day drew to a close, Liam and HFY found themselves standing by the window, looking out at the twinkling lights of Harmony Hub. They held each other close, their bodies touching, their hearts beating as one. It's funny, isn't it? Liam said, his voice a soft whisper. All this started with a broken translator and an alien mating cycle. And now we have a future together. HFY nodded, her tentacles gently stroking his arm. The probability of this outcome was statistically insignificant. But our experiences have proven that the unexpected is, at times, the most rewarding. It has proven that love can, and does, conquer all. Liam leaned in, his lips meeting hers. He could taste the sweetness of her kiss, the warmth of her presence, and the promise of a shared future. Their connection was not just a biological imperative, or a diplomatic maneuver, or a media sensation. It was a profound and genuine love, a love that had defied all rules, broken down all barriers, and united two souls from different worlds. The pheromones may have faded, but their connection was stronger than ever. Liam and HFY had not just found love, they had built a foundation for a future together, a future that was as unexpected as it was beautiful. And as they gazed out at the stars, they knew that this was just the beginning of their new adventure, a journey that would take them to the far reaches of the galaxy and the depths of their hearts. It was a new beginning, a fresh start, and it was absolutely perfect. Life on Harmony Hub had settled into a new rhythm, a harmonious blend of cultures and perspectives, largely influenced by the improbable love story of Liam and HFY. The initial shock and skepticism surrounding their relationship had given way to a sense of acceptance, and even admiration. Their shared commitment to understanding and embracing differences had inspired others, creating a more open and inclusive atmosphere on the station. Liam and HFY, now officially a couple, had become something of a local legend. They were no longer just individuals, but a symbol of hope, a testament to the power of love across cultural boundaries, and a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected connections were the most beautiful. Their joint research project was in full swing. They had transformed a section of the Hub's research facility into a vibrant space, filled with holographic displays, linguistic charts, and complex mathematical equations. They worked side by side, their respective strengths complementing each other perfectly. Liam, with his passion for language and history, would delve into the nuances of ancient dialects, while HFY, with her analytical mind, would analyze the data, searching for patterns and underlying principles. Their classes on intercultural communication were incredibly popular, attracting a diverse group of students from all corners of the galaxy. Liam would often use his characteristic humor to explain complex human emotions, while HFY would provide a more logical and scientific approach to cross-cultural understanding. Their teaching style was a blend of chaos and precision, and it worked, creating a unique learning experience that was both informative and entertaining. And, of course, there was Harmony Hub Hearts, the support group that they had created. It was a safe and welcoming space for individuals from different species who were navigating the challenges of interspecies relationships. They met weekly, sharing their experiences, offering advice, and fostering a sense of community. Liam and HFY were often the facilitators of these meetings, using their own experiences to guide and support others. They would share stories about their awkward first dates, their comical misunderstandings, and the unexpected joys of their unique connection. They also shared the difficulties, the judgment, the scrutiny, and how they had used it all to make their connection stronger. They emphasized the importance of communication, respect, and a sense of humor in navigating the complexities of love across cultural boundaries. One particular meeting stood out in Liam's memory. A nervous young human named Ilara was dating a Glabian, a sentient fungus with a rather sensitive disposition. "I just don't know how to make him feel appreciated," Ilara confided, her voice trembling slightly. "I tried giving him a bouquet of flowers, but he just wilted. I think I insulted his mycelial network." HFY, with her characteristic precision, stepped in. The Glabian culture places a high value on physical nourishment and shared environmental space. Perhaps you should try cultivating a specific type of fungi that is aligned with his metabolic and sensory needs. The Glabian species places great value on that gesture. Liam chuckled. "Or, just spend time with him. Maybe try talking about spores. They like spores. And maybe don't give them flowers. They're definitely going to wilt." The group burst into laughter, and Ilara, her face flushed, looked grateful for the advice. It was just another example of how Liam and HFY were helping others find their own path to love, embracing the beautiful chaos of interspecies relationships. Their own relationship had continued to evolve. Liam had learned to appreciate HFY's unique perspective, her unwavering logic, and her surprising capacity for emotional depth. HFY, in turn, had embraced the messiness of human emotions, finding beauty in the chaos and humor in the absurdity of it all. She had even started to sprinkle a little more spice in her food, her taste buds having adjusted to the stimulating disruptions that Liam had introduced her to. They had developed their own unique ways of showing affection. HFY would occasionally leave Liam cryptic mathematical equations that contained hidden messages of love, which he would then spend hours deciphering. Liam, in turn, would compose silly love songs for her, which he would perform with a mix of sincerity and self-deprecating humor. Their love was a blend of intellectual connection, emotional intimacy, and a whole lot of laughter. One evening, after a long day of research and teaching, Liam and HFY found themselves on the observation deck, looking out at the sprawling view of the galaxy. Liam said, his voice soft, "I never imagined that I would find love with a tentacled alien mathematician. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs, doesn't it?" HFY turned to face him, her eyes filled with a gentle warmth. "My analysis suggests that your initial assumptions were based on a limited understanding of interspecies relationships. My mating cycle was a catalyst, but it is our shared experiences, our mutual respect, and our illogical affection that has resulted in our current state." She paused, and her tentacles moved closer to his. "Our tango continues." Liam chuckled, leaning in to kiss her, their lips meeting in a tender moment of intimacy. He felt the familiar shiver that always traveled through his body when he touched her, and he knew that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. They were both still learning, growing, and evolving. They were still navigating the complexities of their different cultures, their different perspectives, and their different physical needs. They had moments of humor, moments of misunderstanding, and moments of profound connection. Their relationship was a constant dance, a beautiful tango of chaos and precision, emotion and logic, a testament to the power of love in the face of the unexpected. They had created a new world for themselves, a world that was full of hope, acceptance, and a genuine love for the beautiful differences that made them unique. And it was a world they had shared with others, a world where humans and aliens could come together, find common ground, and celebrate the joy of being connected, no matter what the odds. And as they stood there, holding each other close, the vast expanse of the galaxy stretched out before them. They were just two individuals, a human and an alien, but they were a force of nature, a symbol of love, and a beacon of hope, showing the galaxy that even the most unlikely pairings could create a new and beautiful harmony. The scene ended with them dancing together, Liam's clumsy, human grace blending with HFY's elegant, tentacled movements, a perfect symbol of the unique and beautiful relationship they had created. It was their own, unique tango, and it was only just beginning.